The ADL says 2022 was the worst year yet for anti-Semitism since it starts from 2021.
They're up to a 30-year high, and incidents are up to the highest we've ever seen. It's a toxic combination.
The state with the most incidents, New York. The third, New Jersey, which saw more than 400 incidents in 2022, up 10% from the year before. Two-thirds of the incidents in New York were in New York City, which saw 395 overall last year. NYPD stats show Jews face the most hate crimes compared to other populations by at least about 70%.
You don't need Jews for anti-Semitism, but if you're talking about harassment of Jews, the more Jews you have, perhaps the more anti-Semitism you're going to have.
The Anti-Defamation League reports white supremacists are behind most of these incidents. Avi Posnick with Stand With Us, an international organization that works with students against anti-Semitism.
There is a lot of fear out there, especially for young people when they look online, when they see what's happening, when they hear about the incidents. There's fear that, in different communities, they could be attacked.
Evan Bernstein is CEO of Community Security Service, which trains volunteers to be security guards at synagogues and Jewish events.
I wish we could stop growing. I wish we weren't needed, but I just don't see that trend dissipating anytime soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Vocab Malone. Today is Thursday, March 30th. Can't believe it's already April almost. 2023, it's 5:32 or so here Pacific time. And this is Street Apologists Live, the program where we serve the underserved and look into the overlooked. And a lot of you know that a lot of what we do here, of course, relates to Hebrew Israelism. We do apologetics, polemics, church history, doctrine, theology, things like that. And, of course, we cover Hebrew Israelism. And you really can't talk about Hebrew Israelism without talking about anti-Semitism. And by that I mean the standard definition of anti-Semitism, not the one that some of the one-Westers have sort of contrived. Well, why am I doing this today? Well, the ADL, that's the Anti-Defamation League, has released a new report that shows incidents up in 2022, that's the numbers we're dealing with, higher than ever since they've been keeping track, I think, in 1944. Now, that's not good. I'm going to talk about it from a very personal standpoint. What I mean by that is, last night the ADL was in Arizona, and Oren Siegel, who I think is VP or he's affiliated with one of the things they have at the ADL called the Center on Extremism. Well, I was there. I went to the event. That cover image you see is actually me beside an ADL banner. Now, I know that that's going to confirm conspiracy theories for people who want to have conspiracy theories confirmed, but I can't help that. But I did go because I got an email, and it was a thing where anybody, I don't want to say anybody, there were security measures, but pretty much anybody could have went, anybody could go. And it was a very interesting discussion and talk. And I want to talk a little bit about that. So first, let me play one more clip. Well, let me see. I want to play. Okay, what should I do next? First, you know what? First, let me give a shout out to the live chat. How about that? Shout out to the live chat. I know this show was not, you didn't see it scheduled or planned. I have been trying to sneak it in. And finally here, the time arrives when it worked. Okay, so I know that, step one. So thank you to the live chat for those of you who are here, have come. Shout out to my man, Truth Defenders, Joel, Nate, Mr. Phil Fox. How you doing, bro? Warrior Woman, Adam, Optimus Prime, Joel. I don't know if I already said you, but shout out to all y'all. Okay, and let's take a look at some things here, and let's what do we want to look at first? Let me play another set of clips here. Okay, just give me a second. I got some more clips I want to play for you.
Hate crimes are on the rise. That's according to troubling evidence released today by the Anti-Defamation League.
Year yet for anti-Semitism since it started keeping track 44 years ago.
And incidents are up to the highest we've ever seen. It's a toxic combination.
The state with the most incidents, New York.
And a disturbing new report shows that anti-Semitic incidents in the U.S. hit a record high last year. According to the Anti-Defamation League, there were nearly 3,700 incidents reported last year. That's a 36% increase compared to 2021, and the highest level since the organization began recording in 1979. CNN's Brian Todd reports.
Last October, a former student at the University of Arizona kills a professor who he believed to be Jewish, according to authorities. February of this year, a man is charged with 2 hate crimes in Los Angeles after he allegedly shot 2 people at 2 separate synagogues. Incidents that were part of a horrific spike of acts of physical assault, vandalism, and harassment against Jews in the U.S. over the past year. That's according to a new report from the Anti-Defamation League, which says a record number of anti-Semitic incidents were reported last year, nearly 3,700.
Tells us something sick about our broader society. This was the highest year the ADL has ever seen in almost 45 years of collecting this data.
This month, Stanford University police launched a hate crime investigation after a drawing containing swastikas and an image resembling Adolf Hitler was found on a Jewish student's dorm room door. The ADL report says last year there was an increase of over 40% of anti-Semitic incidents at colleges and universities, and a jump of almost 50% at K-12 schools.
Kids repeat on the playground what they hear from their parents, and we know parents will repeat what they hear from people like presidents or members of Congress.
Conspiracies around COVID-19, around election fraud. When you really peel back that curtain, what you see is under these layers, you have the core of these conspiracies is anti-Semitic, right? There is some shadowy cabal, that there is this deep state.
And what keeps experts up at night is the idea that anyone can pick up on an anti-Semitic trope and act on it.
All it takes is one individual with easy access to a firearm and a target. And that's really pointing to a likelihood that there will be increased threat of attacks like this going forward.
What happened?
Right there. Let's pause right there. I believe. You guys recognize that particular scene? That is from a Hebrew Israelite incident, if I'm not mistaken. Now, that was not from 2022, but that's when David Anderson and Francine Graham went into the Jewish kosher supermarket deli there and tried to shoot up the school, but they did manage to do some serious damage, murdering a number of people. In fact, they murdered a man who was an Assemblies of God minister of some sort. I think he was from Ecuador because he worked for them. And so it just shows a larger problem. Now, I was at the event last night, and it was at a Jewish community center. I had never been there before, and I picked up a bunch of stuff when I was there. So let me just show you what I got. What do we get here? Let me flip. I'm going to flip this if I can. Well, it doesn't, yeah, just what will that button do? No, that's not really what I want to do. Okay, yeah. Okay, so I picked up some literature. So this is what they had, you know, for those of you who missed the event. And what it was a community briefing. A community briefing on hate, you know, sort of update to the community. Now, you notice this is for younger people, some of the stuff right here. But the majority of the audience was older. When I say older, I mean significantly older than myself. Significantly older than myself for the most part. There are a few exceptions, but I sort of stood out. I'll just put it that way. And that was actually one of the concerns raised there, was people were saying, hey, you know, like, what about the young people? What do we do about that? Now, look, I know I might get some Christians on here and say, well, vocab, are you saying you agree with everything the ADL does? No, I don't agree with everything the ADL does and stands for. I do not. However, do they do good, important work that is needed? I'm going to say yes to that. Now, why I'm going to say yes to that? I'm going to say yes to that because I believe that we live in a world where sin runs rampant. There's a lot of beauty in this world, and God is good, and he's going to win. He's still on the throne, but ultimately speaking, But in the meantime, the devil's doing what he does, right? And he is a murderer. He's a liar. He comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And there's people that follow after him, and that's how they live. And sometimes it's real slick, real subtle the way they do it. And so the ADL, although not a Christian organization, I'm a Christian, obviously. Hopefully you know that by now, people. They do fantastic work as far as tracking these things, and that's the concern. So I went to the event, picked up some stuff, and there's also some stuff just at the Jewish Community Center in general I picked up. I haven't read this all yet, so I'm just taking a look at it, different things here. I didn't even realize, this Jewish Community Center was quite like it was, but it's pretty dope. And that was like the official literature, but they also had a place where they're giving away free books. So I got some free books at the event. Now I'm just kind of doing a little show and tell. I got some free books, though. This is cool. This is, I guess rabbis use this to teach young folks. So I wouldn't see that. Now, this is all for learning purposes. I hope people understand that. So I got some of these free books, NBDS booklets, and there was even this there. So I got this for free. Part of the Talmud collection. It was right there. And this was probably the biggest find. This is pretty dope right here. Got a dictionary of Targum, Talmud, and the Midrashic literature as well. And here's another booklet I picked up. So I got a couple of things there, and these are all free. All this stuff. Pretty dope, right? Now, let's see. All right, so that's that. Now, I was there for about, 2 hours total. And I managed also to give a copy of my book to Oren Siegel, who's with the Center on Extremism with the ADL. I gave him a copy of my book. And we had a brief discussion twice, once publicly in front of everybody when I did something in the Q&A, and then once afterwards off to the side where when people were leaving, I waited in line to talk to them. So he got my book, and I left a copy of the Jewish Community Center there in Scottsdale, Arizona as well. So now they have it, and people can grab that. So that's what's up with that. Now, I see we're going to have different kind of people here today, and I understand that. That's fine. They can share their perspective, but make sure to the live chat you block them if they get too out of hand, okay? Brandon, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate the super chat. And it looks like you've got... Who is that? Is that Charles Spurgeon on there? If it's Charles Spurgeon, you and I could become good friends, I can already tell. But I want to thank you for the super chat. And I see someone else here. Let's see. Where'd it go? Right Reaction 77 says, you're getting paid by them, aren't you? No, I get paid by super chat. So thank you, Brandon. And I'll give you applause again because that's how we operate here. And we need 2 more people on our patreon.com/vocab. 2 more people and we'll have 100 patrons, and that's what we're looking for. So that's the way I'm paid. It's not by the ADL. Let me talk to you for a second from the heart here. People like the ADL, I don't think exactly know what to do with Christians like me. So I'm not a dispensationalist, but yet I care about anti-Semitism and I deal with cults. But there's still a lot of skepticism by a lot of folks in the Jewish community of evangelical Christians. And some of it has to do with historic things. Some of it has to do with misinformation. Some of it has to do with the concern of we're always going to try to convert them to believing Jesus is the Messiah. And by the way, that last concern is somewhat well-founded. I want to talk to you all about Yeshua being Mashiach. That's true. But the rest of the things, there's some misinformation there. And I think we can still work together in certain ways for the common good. That's my view. Not everyone agrees, and I understand that. But I'm going to talk more about the ADL's perspective on Christians and on Hebrew Israelites here in a second. But in the meantime, just let the chat run wild. Let's watch some more of this and comment on this before I look at the actual PDF of the report. Here we go. play this.
What has to be done to reverse this trend? Experts on extremism and officials at the ADL say more people with influence, from the White House and Congress to school principals to pop culture artists and influencers, have to speak out more against anti-Semitism. But they also say it's got to get more personal with conversations inside American households. Brian Todd, CNN, Washington.
So that report actually still goes on, but I just wanted to play that part for now. And now let's flip over and let's try to actually look at this report itself. I actually have two different reports I want to take a look here. Let me see here. That's from 2021. Let's see. Is that the 2021 report? Well, I thought there was a 2022 report. Let me see here. Well, did I say 2022 earlier? Maybe this report is from 2021. This is what I have access to. So let's take a look here at this, okay? I'm going to bring this up on the screen here. Okay. Now we are looking at the report itself. This is the PDF. You can download it at the ADL website. It is free. And we are going to take a little bit look at this. And there's a lot of important information here. Let me just kind of adjust this a tad. And now, let's see, put it over here. Okay. So it talks about different places where incidents happened. You see, and part of the reason I wanted to go to the event last night is because they talk a little bit about the way that they gather data and the way that they make sure incidents are confirmed so they are giving accurate information. And regardless of what you say about the ADL, from what I've seen, I believe they do give accurate information. They realize that these can be life or death issues. And I appreciate this because someone needs to be keeping track of it because I think it's getting out of hand. And I know that there's always this contingent of like conservatives or, I guess people that say they're Christians who always hate when I do shows like this. And, I lose some of them, and I already know the Hebrazites aren't going to like it, whatever. But frankly, I don't care. I just don't care. I love you guys. I want you to change. But I'm not going to not talk about it because you don't like it. You know what I mean? If we love our neighbor as ourselves, ladies and gentlemen, Christians, do you love your neighbor as yourself? If you love your neighbor as yourself, then you'll care about stuff like this. And that is not even at the hardcore theological level. That's at the basic Christian ethic level. We could go deeper into other issues and talk about things from Romans and boasting out against the natural branches. That's a whole nother discussion. But let's look at this audit of anti-Semitic incidents 2021. Anti-Semitic incidents reached an all-time high in the United States in 2021, with a total of 2,717 incidents of assault, harassment, and vandalism recorded by ADL. There's the mission of the ADL to stop the defamation of the Jewish people and to secure justice and fair treatment for all. I like that. Now we're focusing now on the COE. That's the Center on Extremism. That is the aspect of the ADL that focuses primarily on white supremacists and to a lesser degree Hebrew Israelites and Hebrew Israelism. This is a close-up there of what they call the heat map. The heat map. Now let's go down a little bit here more. And it's a very interesting thing. You can check that out at adl.org. So I'm going to skim through this. I'm just showing you this. You can download this yourself. But notice the different types of acts we have. And they went, I'm gonna go back probably to the executive summary at the end. The ADL, Orrin Siegel, for example, has went out of their way to say not all these things should be classified as crimes. Some of these things are just, I'll just put it in a manner of speaking, just jacked up. Yelling a racial slur at a young Jewish boy at a drive-by yelling, that type of thing. That's what I mean. No one should be arrested for that. But just like that person has free speech, we should have free speech to criticize that kind of hateful behavior. Shout out to Jay Fry for the super chat. Thank you. And again, I know people are saying I get paid by the ADL. No, I don't get paid by the ADL. They wouldn't let me talk about Jesus, is my guess. And so that's never going to happen because I got to talk about Jesus because he's the answer to this hate. But shout out to Jay Fry for the super chat donation. You got the bumblebee on the screen, and you also get the applause. Thank you, brother. And so the ADL is not the way I'm paid. Super Chats is how I'm paid, ladies and gentlemen. Anti-Semitic incidents in the U.S. This is a 10-year review. So from 2012 to 2021. So this is an increase. Everyone sees these numbers. Just one is bad. It's never going to go away as long as we live in this sinful, fallen world. But it's not good to see it increase. It is not good to see it increase. 34% increase from 2020. Highest number on record since they've been tracking. 1979. I think I might have said 1944 at one part. So here's different categories, okay? Harassment. There's people who are perceived as harassment, verbally or in writing. Vandalism. These folks love to tag up synagogues, for example. Assault. Now, this is where you get into actually crimes. Now, look at this right here. 88 assaults resulted in 131 victims and no fatalities. So that's for that year. But did you notice there was the murder of a professor in Tucson, Arizona by someone who thought that he was a Jewish professor? So that's no joke. There was anti-Semitic murder. I mean, we're not even talking about David Anderson and Francine Graham. But let's take a look at this here. The previous highest month on record was November 2018, 300 incidents, which was the month after the Tree of Life Synagogue mass shooting in Pittsburgh, PA. And every month in 2021, this is horrible. Except for January and February, ADL counted an increase in incident reporting compared to the previous year. Now, they're even rolling out in Edmonton, shout out to the Canadians in the live chat, in Edmonton, they're rolling out an app called Lighthouse. Now, it's not everywhere. You know, they're doing a trial run, the ADL is, and this app is to report incidences. You remember how in Luke Cage, you ever see that on Netflix, where they created an app to track where he was at all times so they would know where he was in Harlem and things like that? Created problems for him. But, you know, it's what the people did in this show. Thought it was an interesting little fictional idea, touch, right? Well, there's an app that the ADL's created, and you can report anti-Semitic incidents, and they'll alert law enforcement or whatever needs to be done there. And one thing the ADL does also is partnerships. An interesting one they talk about is the CSI, Community Security Initiative. This is where in Jewish neighborhoods they have patrols and different things like that work with law enforcement and try to limit what happens and what can happen and before things get worse. So I'm not going to go through all of these, okay? You're getting the idea of the report. This is something you could look at, okay? So they have even, like, see this background image? They're saying what it is down here. January 2021, a swastika and what appears to be a Nazi eagle spray painted on a wall in Washington State. So they have all these examples in the background. Then it is here by state. Now, this is a picture of the slide he was going over. Here in Arizona, we got 56 incidents. See that? April 2021, the phrase "Happy Birthday Hitler," a swastika and SS bolts spray painted on a wall in Texas. SS bolts are the symbol of the secret police in Nazi Germany. No one should like that. So I don't get it. You know, you people were bothered by them talking about the work of the ADL. It's like, you know, you're saying they're anti-American. Well, I mean, do you like people who spray paint SS bolts? Is that what you're about? You know, I don't understand some of you guys. You know, it seems like anyone could agree, anyone of good faith, this is troubling and disturbing. I think in the title I put the word alarming. Keep on going down here. This is by month. So it's all very, you know, data-driven, anti-Jewish slur, public opinion, New York. Themes and trends, so they talk about different things. This is related to Hamas. They give all these different little examples. The vandalism are the main, this is in the subway. The vandalism is the main thing you can take a picture of because it's, you know, just kind of static there. It's not someone committing a crime in the act of it. But, you know, you got this, they're outside the synagogue with that. Now here it gets into assaults, mostly in New York. Kind of makes sense. And here's examples. So these are very real examples. I hope no one I don't even want to read all these. But do you see these? We're not okay with this, are we? Don't be okay with this. You better not be okay with that. You better not be okay with any of that. Extremist activity. Now, here's what I want to show you. Hebrew Israelites watching this are like, oh, they're targeting us. Honestly, I'm not going to say the ADL doesn't care. The ADL, maybe almost to a fault, and I understand the perspective, so it is what it is. Almost to a fault, though, is really focused on white supremacists. When I say almost to a fault, I mean sometimes it seems like maybe they're ignoring some of the problems posed by certain extremist factions within Hebrew Israelites. Now, they need to focus on the white supremacists who perpetrate these things and do things like storm the Capitol. Now, I'm not saying everyone who was there, but gosh, I don't want to qualify everything all day. Just deal with it. If you don't understand, ask me a question later, okay? Look at this, look at this, look at this. Christian constitutionalists. Seriously, nobody is saying attack or harass Jews, vocab. The ADL is completely political and anti-white. In a way, Christian constitutionalists, my goodness, I wish you would change your name. In a way, I'm glad people like you say what you think on these live chats, because it reminds us of how very real this hatred is. It reminds us of how this is what WASPs have done. The Jews are over here, so they're outside of this category we've created that is white. The Irish are over here, so they are outside of the category. Well, eventually we'll kind of let them into this category. The Sicilians, the Italians, they're over here, so they're outside of this category, but eventually we'll kind of let them in. But black folks, they're never going to let in. The so-called red man, well, that's a question, but if they can kind of act like us, we'll kind of let them in halfway and maybe take advantage of them and have some kind of partnership, because they're not as bad as, this is the kind of stuff. Now, you may be like, I'm not saying all that, but are you really telling me no one is saying attack or harass Jews? What do you think that the Goyim Defense League does? Have you read about some of these organizations and groups? Matter of fact, do you know that when I read the manifesto, the link is online. I did this on my show. When I read the manifesto of the Buffalo shooter, remember that? You know what the deal with him was? He wanted to actually go after Jewish people, but he said the closest proximity he could do was ones that were being used by Jewish people, so replacement theory. And so that's why he wanted to kill black folks in Buffalo. He was literally saying you should go after them and attack them. What are you talking about? It's like trying to deny the problem. Oh, nobody in this chat. Nobody in this chat in particular, okay? Well, you're not saying it right now, but what are some of you thinking? Who knows? My goodness. None of you. I guess I'm just missing it. I don't get it. I'm just, So here they talk about the extremist here. Our blood is our faith, our nation is our race, blood and soil. There's no way these people are Christian, because that's a whole denial of what the gospel is. Our blood is our faith. Read John 1. Read Acts, where Paul's talking to the Athenians. You're going to tell me our blood is our faith? You must be crazy. Our nation? Read 1 Peter. What kind of nation are Christians to be? The only blood and soil that matters is the soil at Calvary and the blood that dripped on it. Yeah, that's right. I said it. Every single aspect of the COVID agenda is Jewish. Look at this stuff the GDL says. And by the way, they took their name, Goyim Defense League, from the ADL. The Goyim No 88. I guess 88 is a white supremacist, so that means Heil Hitler, because H is the 8th letter of the alphabet. So here's all these different groups and what they do. Bada 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 bada. So if voting won't drain the swamp, and they're referring to it as a Jewish swamp, then what are they saying you should do? Now, here's stuff going on in schools. Imagine going to school and you're a Jewish student. You see a swastika. I'm not Jewish, and I wouldn't like it, to put it mildly. They talk about on college campuses as well. Okay, so I encourage everyone to download this, go through it, take a look at it. I hope that this stays up. I hope they understand that I'm not for any of this. Sometimes the stupid AI is not very intelligent, and they can't even tell, when you're against this stuff. But I hope that they can understand, yeah, I'm against this stuff. Oh, man, I got to zoom out a little bit on this. So now they talk about the methodology of how they gather this stuff and garner this stuff. But did you notice here and you can search for it. There's nothing about Hebrew Israelites in here. If there is, I missed it. So they have this whole report about violence, and then it's over. Look, nothing about Hebrew Israelites or Hebrew Israelism. And so you Hebrew Israelites who think, oh, I work hand in hand, the ADL is much more focused on the white supremacists. The ADL is not focused on that. And in fact, I asked a question, and when I asked a question there at the event that I went to, he wanted to make sure that people knew that the Hebrew Israelites were diverse. That was his main thing he wanted to tell everyone about. In fact, let me see if I can find that. All right, let's see if I can pull that up. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments and reactions. And what's the driving thing for me to do a program like this? You know what it is? It's the fact that we are to love our neighbor as ourself. That is a key element. And like I said, we could get into the whole idea of both not against the natural branches. Let me show you a little bit here. This is from video that I took. I don't know how the audio is going to be, but I just want to give you a sense here, right here. All right, here we go. Let's see what this is got going on here. Watch this from the event last night.
We get anti-Semitic incidents through our 25 regional offices because of people, perhaps even some of you, who took the time to report an incident.
Okay, so these are very short clips I recorded on my phone. Over here, actually, is the same information that I already have shown you. Okay, but I want to show it to you now.
Ever seen in human history that are normalizing anti-Semitism, to the point that I'm more concerned when I talk to younger people that they don't even recognize what anti-Semitism is. It's not about responding to it. They don't even know when they see it. Because some of their heroes, some of our leaders, are sort of doubling down on concepts that one can essentially argue animate those who are more blatant about their anti-Semitism. As an example, you all heard about Kanye West. You all heard about Kanye West probably before he made all his anti-Semitic remarks. Let me remind you, he had more followers on Twitter than there are Jews on the planet Earth. Let me say that again. A guy who was expressing his support for Hitler, utilizing the same anti-Semitic.
So this is the longest clip I think I took. And this is the closest that Oren got to discussing Hebrew Israelism last night, is when he talked about Ye's tweet. And I did a whole show on that, by the way.
Tropes that people have used for a century had more followers than there are Jews on the saying Kanye was right. Or large, billboards and flyering appearing on people's lawns at their homes supporting Kanye West. It got to the point where white supremacists started talking about how much they love Kanye West. Think about that. That's a black man that white supremacists are supporting. All irony aside, anti-Semitism is that glue that brings people together. Now, obviously, Kanye West, the white supremacist, also had dinner at a former president's home. That's a weird sentence, by the way. That's a very 2022 sentence. A white supremacist and an influencer who is known for praising Hitler had dinner with a former president.
Nick Fuentes.
That tends to normalize hate and anti-Semitism as well. And then, the former president.
Is what's being talked about there wrong? Are those lies? What say you? I mean, that's all correct. We should be able to stand as Christians with the ADL in that area.
With information that we are collecting much more quickly.
Just giving you an example. So I did not partake of the cookies, but I did bring some home to my son, and he said, hey, these are pretty good chocolate chip cookies. So shout out to the Jewish Community Center for the cookies.
But we realized that there are crowdfunding platforms. Some of you probably use them. If somebody is in a hospital or some are increasingly using these financial technologies in order to support their activity.
Now, I'm actually going to pause there and flip over and show you something here, because that was an interesting point. And I know that this is also controversial, and I'm still trying to work out what I think about it for various reasons. This is all very complicated. But here, let me say what I'm saying here. The ADL has been looking at, people in relationship to the crowdfunding issue. Okay. And what they've been doing is, I guess, alerting some of these different things about, crowdfunding, like who's doing what. And so I do want to talk about that a little bit, okay? Because Hebrews did come up in this report. This is called the ADL Crowdfunding Report. Now, the reason this gets tricky is because you can see them doing this to us. Not because we're anti-Semitic, but because there's certain things that we as Christians, that's what I mean by the us, will never agree with when it comes to the secular agenda. Right? I think we all understand what I'm talking about and recognize that. Well, I do believe there will be a day where they're going to go after us in this way. Now, the ADL is not a law enforcement agency, so they tell PayPal or whoever, oh, this guy's using your stuff, whatever. But you do kind of wonder, where will it stop? Now, as far as what it is now, it's hard for me to really say anything against it, because I do think these platforms should be aware when things are being raised directly for anti-Semitic activity or things like that. The problem is, what do you categorize as the like that? Either way, it is what it is. Let's take a look at the ADL Crowdfunding Report, how bigots and extremists collect and use millions in online donations. Mission, there's that. Okay, it's from the Center of Extremism. Let me make this a little larger here. Yeah, I'm gonna have to make my part a little smaller here. I believe some Hebrew Israelites have been affected by this, and despite whatever conspiracy theory you guys may have, I had nothing to do with it. Okay, I had nothing to do with it, but there were some GoFundMes and some different things that I did notice that got shut down, and I wonder if it was, the ADL had something to do with it. I don't know, but I remember that thought did cross my mind when I saw some stuff. Okay, let's look here, though, because you are going to see Hebrew Israelism make an appearance. It's a small appearance, but it is going to make an appearance in this report. So this relates. I just don't know where else I would talk about this, because I'm only going to do so many shows on the ADL. For example, I'm a Rand Paul type conservative, Ted Cruz even. But I have trepidation about them including something like what you see on the screen in a report like this. Now, if they're talking about the January 6th insurrection, okay, but I just think it gets to, it's like 80. You don't want to be a show for the left, but nonetheless, everything's a mixed bag, isn't it? Apparently, there's a platform called GoFundMe. Now, obviously, if that's the case, they're not going to care, about crowdfunding on their platforms, but other ones would, such as GoFundMe. So let's take a look at this, because I hate these kind of quotes. Look at this. I would consider it an honor to have, and he's talking about the KKK. The KKK use the platform and share the hope of Jesus with them. Hold on, I'd have to look at this more. I'd have to look at this quote more. I wonder what is being said here. Cause see the brackets too. I'm just reading it. We got to check out everything. I wonder what the CEO or co-founder of Gidson Go, what he was really trying to say there. I don't know what's going on, but I see the bracket, so it's like, well, let me see here. But this stuff's a serious issue. These are real groups and real problems we're talking about. And anything I say is going to be controversial on this. And everybody has an opinion, and people try to find one little thing you say and take it out of context the other way. Here's a Proud Boy rally, December 2022. Now, interesting. Yeah, that's some nonsense right there. I'm not taking a look at all this because I'm going to one particular part, but you're getting an idea here what's going on. This is it. So page 21, now page 22. They do talk about Hebrew Israelism. Now I'm going to go back and look at it, but I just wanted to bring that out. So they do have that, and I'm going to take a look. Now this is different than the report with the incidents. Hebrew Israelites are left out of that, but they are included in this crowdfunding report where they're trying to go after their sources, these guys' sources of funding. It is in there. Let's take a look here. And I've already given my qualifications and caveats. I hope people understand what I'm trying to say. We got to form wise opinions about this and navigate very troubled waters these days, don't we? And it's not easy, is it? Okay, let me see here. How can I make this a little bigger where you guys can see it? Just give me a second. I'm going to read some of this. This is from the funding report. Okay, so this is different when we first looked at. Anti-Semitic Black Hebrew Israelite campaigns. Black Hebrew Israelite movement is a fringe religious movement that rejects widely accepted definitions of Judaism and asserts that certain people of color are the true children of Israel. While not all BHI organizations are extremists, some sects push extremist anti-Semitic beliefs, and several of these have launched crowdfunding campaigns to support their outreach efforts. Most of Black Hebrew Israelite extremist crowdfunding centers around propaganda production. Let's talk about propaganda production here. Crowdfunding has been crucial to the growth of the highly anti-Semitic programming of the Hebrew Israelite radio network. Now, I never even heard of this till I looked at this report. So I don't even know what the Hebrew Israelite radio network is, at least not that I know of. So, you're always learning about this stuff. An online platform that hosts video, music, and live stream preaching BHI ideology. The platform has raised at least $442,900. What? That's almost $500,000 via GoFundMe. And these funds are used to manufacture media that promotes anti-Semitic conspiracy theories revolving around the Synagogue of Satan and the Rashov family. For example, the network's video streaming platform HebrewTube hosts a variety of documentaries attributing historical events like 9/11 terrorist attacks, the assassination of JFK, and the start of the World War I to Jews. In 2017, the anti-Semitic Black Hebrew Israelite group, the Army of Israel, AOI. I have talked to the leader of AOI. You guys remember that? He was on here. And they had an incident go down where a former member of theirs did some really naughty stuff. Some heinous stuff. Someone could bring up that program, please. They're talking about AOI in here. That's wild, isn't it? Created a GoFundMe arm of Israel. So looking at this, and I'll go over here. Army of Israel headquarters for its E37 entertainment music operation. Army of Israel actually has a very interesting song called One West. It's like a rap song where they actually talk about One West, and they even mention like Ariyah, Mashah, like the seven heads and everything. And it's very interesting. It's like One West till the death, or One West unblessed. I forget what they say. But they do all that. To date, it has raised at least $2,900 from 66 donations. Despite the campaign's name, the description makes it clear the funds are intended to support media production and outreach to enable them to reach thousands of Hebrews throughout the United States and abroad. Okay, so that's a One West group. Now they're talking about Ron Dalton Jr., not a One Wester. Ron Dalton Jr. is an author and movie maker who established a Black Hebrew Israelite identity brand in 2013. I mean, that's an accurate statement. I mean, that man, he is the perpetual self-promotion machine, if anybody is. He'll post about, a pair of shoes. He'll be like, look at these, check out the new laces I put in here. By the way, buy my book and check out my movie on Amazon. His beliefs are rife with anti-Semitic ideas, and he created the film Hebrews to Negroes to push these ideas. To fund its production, Dalton started a GoFundMe campaign and collected at least $70,150. One time, I think I raised like $1,200 for a GoFundMe to procure certain things related to security measures. I think that's the most I've ever raised. It was maybe $1,500, and we did another one that raised like $500. We've done a couple small ones. Imagine being part of a movement where you can just raise $75,000 like that. That's crazy. I'm not even talking about the ethics of GoFundMe and what should happen with all that in the ADL. I'm just taking a look here at the numbers. If you're an observer, you should be like, yo, vocab ain't crazy. Like, that's some serious money. Now, the other one, Army of Israel, was like $3,000, right? But this is serious. And that was in 2018, before eggs were $7. Released in 2018, Hebrews to Negroes is based on several namesake books by Dalton and cites core BHI beliefs that certain people of color, including Black Americans, are the true descendants of biblical parasites. This film includes claims of a global Jewish conspiracy to oppress and defraud Black people. Allegations that Jews are in part responsible for the transatlantic slave trade. It does include all that, by the way. They're not lying. And the claim that Jews falsified the history of the Holocaust to, quote, conceal their true nature and protect their status and power. That's true. That's a quote from the book. How do I know? Because I saw it. Hebrews to Negroes recently came into spotlight after professional basketball player Kyrie Irving promoted on his social media accounts. Real quick, how come Kyrie went to Dallas and even when he plays with Luka, they're still under 500? What is going on over there? Dallas needs to get it together. I like Dallas. Now, a lot of people in Phoenix don't like Dallas because it's a rivalry. That's my favorite rivalry in the NBA right now, actually, is Dallas and Phoenix. I know I'm supposed to strictly hate them, but they're fun to watch, in my opinion. But why can't they? Now, I'm always going to root for Phoenix over Dallas, okay? The Suns, right? No doubt about that. But my goodness, why can't they get it together, man? It don't make no kind of sense. Anyways, Dalton has since produced sequels, The Curse of Israel and Hebrews to Negroes 3, Sound the Alarm, both of which were supported by GoFundMe campaigns. To host his mini movies and docuseries, Dalton created his own streaming service, Hebrews to Negroes TV. He has a streaming service? I didn't know that. These dudes, man, there's so much demand there. These guys can just do whatever. I swear all these Hebrew sites got their own streaming service. IUIC, Sakari. We can barely make it by on YouTube. In August 2020, Dalton established 2 GoFundMe campaigns to fund the creation of the network. The campaigns have collected $11,877, and the most recent donation was made in October 22. Now they go into ISUPK. ISUPK propaganda promoting anti-Semitic tropes comparing the transatlantic slave trade to the Holocaust. ISUPK, by the way, stands for Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, and I have dealt with them. And here's the type of memes they put. Ashkenazi Jews of Khazarian origin. You know, that old Khazar theory. They love that. Most of them never even read 13th Tribe. An image shown in the Hebrews to Negroes film promoting the Khazarian myth. Not all BHI crowdfunding campaigns have been successful. They're throwing shade. The ISUPK is one of those prominent extremist sects in the BHI movement. They're a One West school, that's true. The sect hosts a podcast where they push their virulent ideology. And to fund this effort, they created a crowdfunding campaign on GoFundMe where they collected at least $570 before the campaign was shut down. Now, how did it get shut down? I wish the ADL would tell us. I am interested in the background of the stuff. I don't know how it's all working, but it's interesting, right? ISUPK's history of articulating anti-Semitic tropes and beliefs, including through the production of merchandise describing the African slave trade as a true Holocaust, and podcast episodes that discuss comparing Jewish people and the real Jews. Let's see what else we got over here. Oh, that's just how much they raise. But what has made that much? Who has? They're talking about Dalton? Oh, yes, Dalton. That graphic's not clear, because it says 11,000 collected since October 2022, but that doesn't actually. But you have to read. It's in regards to Dalton's latest thing. And a screenshot from an AOI video promoting the Synagogue of Satan. AOI is Army of Israel. The Hebrew Israelite Network has raised at least $442,900 via GoFundMe funds are used to promote anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. So that's it. So it's from pages 22 to 25. The rest, they don't even really have that much in there. But they do have some things in there. So I did want to show you. Now, I thought I saw a super chat. Hold on, I don't want to miss you, because you guys are what keeps the channel going and enables me to write books. I'm working on my 3rd book. Purely Grounded, you're a faithful super chatter, and I appreciate you supporting what we do here. Shout out to you. You get the love no matter what, Purely Grounded. Thank you very much. Praise God for faithful witnesses. Don't leave them out here to do work alone. Appreciate that very much. No doubt, no doubt, no doubt. Okay, flipping back over. What are you guys thinking about all this? I'll be curious to hear your thoughts and all of that. Now, let's get on I'm going to get on the next couple, little things from the event here. Just give me a second here, and I want to play some more from the event last night. So the ADL came to Scottsdale, Arizona. I don't live in Scottsdale. It was like a 40-minute drive, but I drove out there, drove out there and did check it out. Let me see, 8026. Just give me a second here. I got to bring up the next thing. 8026. So the next little video. This is from my phone, me at the event. I don't know. Is this the part where I asked him a question? We'll find out here in a second. I'm not sure, but let's play this. Here we go. Street Apologist Live. Please subscribe. That's right.
It's so easy to raise money for your hatred these days. Now, what's interesting is not just the data here in the report, but it's that people are now sending us their best and brightest.
Okay. Now the part where he says people are sending us their best and brightest, I guess the ADL is doing training with some different organizations. Not only that, they have people at PayPal who alert them to stuff. So again, that in and of itself is good. I'm just registering some concern that I believe one day this kind of stuff will be used against us type of Christians. And I wish that wasn't the case. But for now, you know, the thing is like, what do you do about that? You know, it is what it is. I think this is where I ask him a question. People are going to be very upset because here's what happened. When I say upset, because they're going to be upset that I brought this up probably as they watch. Oh, this isn't it yet. I haven't found it yet. I'm trying to find where I ask him a question. I'll tell you why I ask him a question.
Here's some examples that
What happened is he had a slide about Hebrew Israelites in his presentation. It was very brief, but he did have a slide. But he skipped it. He skipped it in the presentation. And it had Hebrews to Negroes on it. But he didn't even talk about it. And so at the end of the Q&A...
You know where they're looking? The same platforms that my 11-year-old son is spending most of his time. That's all you need to know about extremism today. It operates in the same space as...
Okay. I think this is it. People are going to be very upset because I do bring it up and want to see what he says. So this is the most Hebrew Israelite ideology was really talked about here, and it was in response to my question.
You skipped a few slides. One I wanted to see something more about was, and I wondered if you knew, here in Arizona, every Saturday, on about 7 or 8 different corners throughout the city, groups of Hebrew Israelites are preaching from pretty much the morning to the night. You skipped a few slides. One I wanted to see something more about was the Ron Dalton Jr. film, tweeted by Kyrie Irving with the Hebrew Israelism. And I wondered if you knew, here in Arizona, every Saturday, on about 7 or 8 different corners throughout the city, groups of Hebrew Israelites are preaching from pretty much the morning to the night, from downtown to Tempe, all over in Phoenix.
Yeah, I am aware, and by the way, as a native New Yorker, my first memories of Times Square was walking by the Black Hebrew Israelites, calling me all sorts of names at the time. Yeah, I mean, this is the problem with Kyrie Irving sharing a movie that is basically taking on sort of Black Hebrew Israelite ideology, is that when you scratch the surface, his fans, the people who look up to him, are going to learn some of the most anti-Semitic ideas. Now, I want to be clear. There are different sects within the Black Hebrew Israelites. Some are not radical at all, but there's a portion that are, and the version of the movie that he Hebrews that do. And by the way, it doesn't mean that what they're doing is breaking the law. I want to be clear about that. In America, you can be as hateful as you want to be, right? It allows us to be who we want to be. But in America, you're also allowed to tell somebody when they're being hateful and using your own freedom of speech to call it out. And that's what we decided to do.
Okay, so that was about a minute 44 with that little spot right there. And that was really the only discussion of Hebrew Israelism at this event put on by the ADL last night here in Phoenix, Arizona that I attended. And so to y'all Hebrew Israelites think I'm working with the ADL, this kind of stuff, I would tell you if I was. You know what I mean? I would tell you. I wouldn't have any shame. They're not focused on Hebrew Israelism. Every now and then when an incident happens or something catches their eye, they'll put it up. And their analysts do good work, because I've checked the work of their analysts. Not all these organizations get their stuff right. Every time I've checked an ADL analyst in regards to the work, I haven't found any mistakes yet. I'm not saying they're perfect. I'm not saying they get everything right. I've registered some concerns I have earlier in the broadcast, but I've never seen their analysts make a mistake in regards to screenshots or numbers or that kind of thing as far as what I've been able to check. Now, they are primarily concerned with extremists of the white supremacist variety. You saw in their report not even a mention in regards to incidents of Hebrew Israelites. Now, there were some incidents. They didn't even mention them. In the crowdfunding report, there was 3 or 4 pages, but some of that was just pictures and stuff. And it was minor compared to everything else. Now, afterwards, let me tell you, I actually went up to Oren Segal, the man you heard presenting, and talked to him for a little bit. Briefly, but we had a brief discussion. Introduced myself. No, he does not know who I am. And I could tell when I introduced myself, he also did not know who I was. Gave him my book, told him who I... Hey, Google, turn off. Gave him my book, told him what I do. And I asked him a question and also filled him in on some data on different things like that. As far as numbers and some things I knew that I don't think he knew. And things, I'm being kind of vague. I'm not trying to reveal every little thing of the conversation. It was a public conversation. We're standing in line. It wasn't in a room with cigars afterwards or anything, okay? So I'm just saying what I think I should say, okay? But let me be honest. I don't want to say he was dismissive, but when a person says, I don't want to say this word, that means that's a closest word they can think of, but they feel it's too strong of a word, so they're trying to go with something else. He was not exactly really concerned about Hebrew Israelites, Hebrew Israelism, at least what he showed me in our brief conversation. And in fact, he said, well, they're very diverse. He essentially repeated what he said there at the end. Very diverse. They're not all, which obviously, if anyone knows, I'm just saying, I know. But I told him areas of research and knowledge that are still lacking in regards to Israelism and some extremist and that kind of thing, and anti-Semitic elements. I told him about that. And he just wanted to reiterate how diverse they were and how they're not all the same and they're not a monolith. And just was kind of not even fully paying attention. He was busy. He had a whole line of people. I'm not even tripping. I'm just telling you. He was more looking at the book and at the, pointed out the book back like, hey, where's your beard, right? Because in the picture of that image, I don't have a beard. It was published in 2017, this book that I gave him. And I made a joke. I said, well, I'm trying to keep Old Testament law now. Which I'm just joking about because I worship Jesus, who kept the law perfectly and imputed his righteousness to me and became sin, even though he knew no sin, 2 Corinthians 5:21. I didn't say all that part, but I'm just saying. And then he said, well, I've been hearing about some of these guys who get into Israelism stuff, and I'm paraphrasing what he said. But they come out on the other end, and then they end up being willing to associate with more mainstream Judaism, and they go ahead and kind of bridge over and cross over. Now, I told him, yeah, that happens every now and then, but, from his perspective, I said, you have a much more kind of optimistic view of the situation than I do. That's sort of an optimistic one take, right? And to be honest, let me tell you guys, that's the view of a lot of Jewish folks I've talked to in the community, especially if they're center left moderate versus more conservative and political elements. They tend to not want to be too worried, not want to focus on this, make sure they give a lot of caveats, not paint with a broad brush, and think this is a step to a greater bridge building. Now, there's a famous clip that Hebrew Israelites love to play where it's kind of taken out of context, but I said something along the lines of converting to Judaism is not a good thing. And what I meant by that in that context, I was speaking strictly as a Christian. What do I mean by that? As a Christian, if somebody recognizes Yeshua as a fulfillment of the Hebrew scriptures, prophecies, and now I'm a 1 John 2:19 guy, meaning I don't really believe they are born again, but if that's their understanding, and hopefully that can lead them into a full submission to Christ as Lord, right? And that's where they're at, and they drop that kind of even baseline level, and then go over to saying, well, now let's keep Torah, let's do this, let's do that, let's do this. And by the way, Yeshua is not the Messiah. That's what I mean by that. That's not a good thing. I'm a Christian. Of course I would say that. Now, if you're talking about somebody who's a terrorist or, totally secular and they convert into Judaism on a societal kind of common good level, I could say, okay, I see the good in that on a societal common good level. But speaking as someone who's involved in some way, even on the outskirts with Christianity, and leaves the faith in some way. Now, remember, I'm a Calvinist, so that I believe in the perseverance of the saints. But if that happens, that's what I mean by not a good thing. I'm still going to say that, and that's again why the ADL is going to have a limited use for someone like me. They're probably like, well, that's nice, you guys are doing that, but we're going to kind of do our own thing. We've got people working on this, and honestly, they do have some amazing things. Let me tell you about one thing. He called it a trade secret. This is amazing. This is amazing what he said, or what they've done. They're able to get with a firm and create kind of like their own AI tool that is able to digest podcasts and look for keywords specifically to the Arizona context, specifically for, this is Arizona ADL. For example, someone mentions the Jewish Community Center, and then have an analyst look at it and see what it's saying. So if someone's saying something like, yeah, I want to go storm, or I want to go vandalize, I'm just, who knows what someone will say on a podcast, the JCC, that would be picked up. I don't know if they pick up YouTube. Maybe this will get picked up. And then they decide what to do with it or not do with it, right? Or it may say, hey, yeah, we were hanging out at the Jewish Community Center. The girls had a soccer game. Okay, right? That's fascinating. So I could see why when, I'm out here on the first and Van Buren, they're like, yeah, why are we going to talk to that guy? Look what he's doing. And plus he's telling people to believe in Jesus. That's not, So I get that. But nonetheless, I'll be an ally in the ways I can and show that there is first, love for God, the triune God of Scripture. And then second, there is also love for neighbor as self. And this includes that. So this is why I'm bringing this all out. I know Christians have different perspectives. I hope that they honestly adopt. I believe I have a pretty balanced perspective on this. I hope they could adopt some of the views that I have, because I'm not a, John Hagee dispensationalist. But at the same time, I'm also not a Steven Anderson anti-Semite. There's other places to be besides that, people. And so I was at this event. I got some books. I got some literature. Kind of made some connections. We'll see if they do something again. I'll keep you guys posted and let you know. But in the meantime, I do encourage you. And what I'm going to try to do, I always forget. If I forget, someone remind me. I'm going to try to drop the links to the 2 reports in the description box. They're not there now, but I need to put them in there. And what I'll do is you can see the both the things I share on the screen. There's one more, I think, clip I want to play in relationship to video to just kind of wrap this show up. Let me see here, because I think I had one more news report I didn't play, and I do want to make sure that you guys see those as well. Okay, where's that? If I already played it, please forgive me. I'll know pretty quick, and I'll start a different one. But there's one more I had downloaded that I wanted to show you guys. Okay, let me see. Is it? I think it's this one right here. Let's find out here.
Or we told you how a state lawmaker says anti-Semitic graffiti was found in a bathroom at Dr. Phillips High School. The hate against the Jewish community is something we've recently seen in downtown Orlando and on flyers in Orange County in one neighborhood. Now, the Anti-Defamation League is releasing a new report on anti-Semitic attitudes in the country. News 6's Carolina Cardona joins us now live in the newsroom with more on this. Carolina.
Ginger, the Anti-Defamation League says their new report shows an increase across the board in these types of incidents. Researchers looked at the overall number of different anti-Jewish tropes that people tend to believe. Those surveyed responded true or false on statements that describe traditional anti-Jewish myths.
As someone who does this work all day, every day, I have to tell you, these responses take my breath away.
It's the reaction from the CEO of the Anti-Defamation League, a global anti-hate organization that just revealed their findings on anti-Semitic attitudes in America.
But what these findings represent, what they tell us, and what creates such urgency is the fact that huge numbers of Americans hold dangerous, false ideas about the Jewish people.
The report says anti-Semitic attitudes in the U.S. are widespread and likely increasing. 85% of Americans believe at least one anti-Jewish trope, as opposed to 61% in 2019. More than 4,000 Americans responded true or false on statements that commonly misrepresent the Jewish community.
In addition to these classic anti-Semitic myths, we also saw dangerous levels of agreement with radical anti-Israel positions.
The report from the ADL organization was released almost 2 weeks after an anti-Semitic message was displayed on the top of a building on New Year's Eve in downtown Orlando. And just last week, some residents in West Orange County found anti-Semitic flyers with hateful statements on their front yards and driveways.
What we're really seeing is far wider spread anti-Semitism in that classical fascist trope conspiracy theory sense, much more so than a broad negative Israel sentiment among the American population.
In 2022, ADL reported 172 anti-Semitic incidents in Florida, 13 in Orlando. Young adults that outline anti-Semitic stereotypes, similarities and differences between prejudices against Jews and other groups. Live in the newsroom, Carolina Cardona, News 6.
And a disturbing new report shows that anti-Semitic incidents in the U.S. hit a record high.
You skipped a few slides. One, I wanted to see something more about.
Okay. All right. Thank you to the mods, by the way, for doing good work. I know you're having to block a lot of people and all that stuff going on. I know how it can be. Check this out. I thought I had done this, and I wanted to play that clip to give myself some time to do this. I had said a number of times, here we are looking at the report, but there was one time where I registered some confusion because I was like, wait, these numbers are from 2021. I had downloaded a number of reports, and the report I was showing you, which is fine, I'm glad I still showed it to you, was the 2021 report. I have the 2022 report up. That's what I intended to show you, and here's what's interesting about it. In 2021, the ADL, and the report I had showed earlier in this program, did not include Hebrew Israelism. Now in 2022, the report I had actually intended to show, and now I'm going to show you as the last part of the show, does include Hebrew Israelism. So what I said is still true in regards to the 2021 report, but there was a disconnect where I was supposed to be showing you the 2022 report, which I'm going to do right now. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So I apologize for any confusion there on my end. Let's go in. And again, I want to give a shout out to the mods. Thank you, mods, for doing great work. I knew we would have a lot of people going wild, and I appreciate the work that you all do, keeping things in order, keeping things in check. We definitely need it, especially on a show like this. And I got to tell you guys, it's like when people get riled up about these kind of programs I do, it makes you want to just do more of them, because it's like, well, it shows kind of the reality of there really is a problem. That's kind of like my view. It's like, the people remind me, oh, there really is a problem here. Okay, so let's take a look a little bit at the 2022 report, okay? 3,697 incidents, and this is going to be the last thing we do. And this is the link I want to put up, actually. So it looks a little more 2022-ish, doesn't it? You can kind of tell there as far as, got the QR codes and all that. This is very similar. You guys remember the heat map that they have, and you can visit that. Now look, this looks very similar to the 2021, but look at right here. That's the difference that I wanted to show you. Right here, okay? So Now they are included, and it says BHI extremists, so it's only certain folks there that they want to include. But let's talk a little bit about it. I know I said I was going to go back and look at the executive summary of the other one. Wasn't able to do it. Didn't, but I am going to have to pass through this here. There's yet another report, Anti-Semitic Attitudes in America, they've talked about, and that was good as well. Well, not good, but good to know, because information is good, knowledge is good. So look at the increase from 2021 to 2022, 2,707 to 3,697. Now, some people are going to say, oh, that's just a matter of reporting. No, it's not just a matter of reporting. That's an easy way out to deal with this, but that's not the case. So there's a breakdown of incidents state by state, month by month. Very similar. So you can kind of see how this goes, right? Very similar. And Jewish institutions are showing different places they have issues and problems at. I was actually at one last night, the JCC. Let's take a look at some of these, because, this is a serious issue, folks. Regardless of Hebrew Israelite involvement or not, 9 assaults took place and 4 assaults. Gunmen took several hostages in Congregation of Beth Israel, Colleyville, Texas. Remember that? Jewish students getting off a school bus in front of the religious school, an individual grabbed the kippah off the head of one of the children, Brooklyn, New York. Hasidic Jewish school bus driver was shot with a BB gun by a group of teens while the door to his bus was open. That's in Brooklyn, New York. A Jewish individual was shot with a BB gun by a person driving in a car while he was out walking in front of a synagogue, Brooklyn, New York, both in May there. An assailant threw a rock at a Jewish person standing in front of a synagogue. That's in Jersey. Congregant was leaving a synagogue in Portland was approached by 2 individuals in the parking lot, one of whom punched him several times. Same assailant threw a rock at a Jewish person in front of the synagogue August 2022. Did the same thing 2 weeks later. Apprehended. Security guard at Jewish synagogue as well as synagogue superintendent were assaulted by an individual after they asked him to leave the premises. Again, a lot of this is in New York. A teenager was standing in front of the Chabad headquarters in Brooklyn, approached by a woman and slapped in an unprovoked attack. Colleyville one was probably the most serious of last year. 4 people held hostages. They were released unharmed. Gunman was killed by police. Now, he was an Islamist, Afu Siddiqui, and he's serving 86 years. Now, I talk about bomb threats and even contact form harassment. That's interesting. I never even heard of that category till now. Keep on going down here. Bada boom, bada bing. Yes, there is a section now on Hebrew Israelites. Holocaust jokes and references and stuff like this. I just don't understand people, honestly. I mean, I do, but I don't. This stuff's not really fun to look at. Let's put it that way. So you got the details here. You see the details. And we are coming up on the section that has been added now. We need to see this. We're also going to have to include that teacher in the next year. See, there's the white supremacists, and that's the main perpetrator. So it does make sense that ADL primarily focuses on them. And here's a new section that's been added to the report. It was not in last year's report, but now it is. They were responsible for 8 instances of targeted anti-Semitic harassment or propaganda distribution throughout the year, most notably surrounding the controversy involving professional basketball player Kyrie Irving. In late October, Irving shared a link to an anti-Semitic film rooted in extremist BH ideology on Twitter. The incident drew significant media attention, and Irving was briefly suspended from the team. When Irving returned to the court for the Brooklyn Nets on November 20th, the extremist BHI group Israel United in Christ, what's up, IUIC, had a large demonstration outside of the Barclays Center during which they chanted "We are the real Jews" and distributed propaganda. Individuals associated with other extremist BHI groups also demonstrated in that same location in subsequent weeks, making anti-Semitic comments to passerby and referencing Adolf Hitler in at least one case. So there is a clip. Canary Mission has shared it, where it's a member of Sakari, Jersey, New York, and they're saying how they like Hitler and the Holocaust was a good thing. And I had a very similar thing happen to me with Captain Tazamaya. I just usually call him Taz, in San Diego, where he said that the Germans dropped the ball because they didn't complete the Holocaust. I mean, he really said that. Now, here's incidences related to Ye, where people say things like, he's right. You know, and that's pretty much mainly it. You know, they got this, but I don't really see much other Hebrew Israelite stuff. It's just that one little section. So they have now added it in the report. So maybe from now on going forward it'll be, but notice the paragraph. It just says 8 incidents. Now it doesn't, I don't see where it says the incidents. I do see there's links. I see there's links here. Let's see. They have a, so it looks like they have a IUIC entry. They have a Hebrews and Negroes entry. But let's see what this is. I'm going to click on this and find out what this is, if I can go to that. So there, now we've looked at the other report there. So I thought that was important to bring up, and now you guys have seen it. Oh. Okay, so yeah, I've already seen this. Oh, it's not on your screen, is it? No, it's not, but I'll show it to you real quick here. So that's the link. So it doesn't really explain anything. It's from 2020 there. All right, I'm not going to look too much at that. That's just bada. I'll go back to the report here. So it doesn't say what the 8 incidences are that I can see, that I can tell. Now, I apologize earlier. I showed you last year's report, but it's actually interesting because now, because I did that, you're able to see the difference between the 2 years. And I'm going to try to link all of them, okay? So there's that. Boom, 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 boom. There's that. Okay. Now I'm flipping back over. And that's really all I have for today. Thank you for joining this program. I'm working on another program. I hope it still happens, where I'm actually working on doing a joint review of the debate between Dr. Brown and Al-Azhar. I'm hoping that's going to happen. I'm going to look here real quick at your comments first and see if I can find anything that I should share. Mods, do you have any comments I should share or anything particular I need to say before we get out of here? If there is, let me know, and I'll try to do it before we leave. Let me see. I'm going to bring up this real quick and see what people might be saying here in the live chat. And make sure you subscribe to this channel, please. Please subscribe to this channel. And make sure you hit the thumbs up on this video. And also, if you could please, make sure you hit that bell, that notification. And I love to see you guys also joining on Patreon, of course. And I love to see you leaving comments in the live chat and underneath the videos. D News says what I need to do is tell people to act right. Nate says that we unlocked a freestyle. Under Fire says, thank you for doing this. I am Jewish. Well, hey, thank you. I'm glad you're here, and I appreciate your contribution. You say ADL is known to be biased. My guess is you're probably saying biased sort of against the right. Perhaps that's what you mean, because I have seen that, but it doesn't mean I discount them. You know, a lot of things are a mixed bag, you know. Christian constitutionalist is attacking everyone who disagrees. Christian constitutionalists, honestly, what is your problem with today's program? I don't fully understand. I am glad that you say you can disagree with me about a lot of things and know I'm not an agent or a shill. Is shill Yiddish, by the way? Someone look at the origin of shill. I bet it's Yiddish. Selah Israel does think I'm an agent, though. Christian constitutionalist brings up that. Yeah, I know what you're talking about there. And who else we got here? Yeah. Yep. Thank you again, mods. I got to go.